Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
Hey, this is Bob Bender, and you're listening to this edition of The Business Side of Music. And once again, have co-host, co-producer from Nashville, Tennessee, Vinny Rebus. Vinny, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure to have you. You know, we're out here in sweltering Southern California. I was mentioning to Vinny before we started the show that it actually got down to 99 degrees today, so we're real happy about the weather here. Hey, on today's show, we have someone that Vinny introduced me to musically. He said, you got to check this guy out, listen to his music. He's out of Dallas, Texas, and has been playing music from what I looked at on his bio, 15 years or so. He's toured the United States, he's toured Europe, he's played with some national acts. He's worked as an independent musician. But his style of music is something that you just don't hear often, and when you have to define something, and we're going to talk about that a little bit with him, when you have to define the style of music, there really is no box that this music sits in. It's just really kind of really cool. Anyway, we have on the show today Jake Dexter. Jake, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bob. I'm glad to be here.
When we talk about this, I did a little bit of research and went online and looked at your bio, and it talks about mixing spoken word with soul, funk, and rock. I don't think actually that does justification to your music, because to me it's a lot more than that. It's kind of like an onion. You start peeling back all the layers, to get to the core of it, and you've got a great sense of taste when it comes to writing songs.
Well, thank you so much. And I just I've played on the road for years as a professional keyboardist for groups, and throughout playing with country groups and R&B groups and soul groups and pop groups. I think it just all whenever I write, it just all sort of mixed to make whatever the style I have now is. Just a little melting pot of everything.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy. It's a melting pot of everything, and one of the things that I liked when I looked at, especially your lineup of your band, the Main Street Sound. You got a couple guitarists, of course, and another keyboard player, and drums and percussion. But then I noticed that you got a cello player in there, and to me that just kind of it's in a way it's kind of mind-blowing, because it transcends onto a different level. How did this band come about? We're gonna talk more about the music, but let's touch base on the band real quick. How did this specific lineup come to mind?
So the specific lineup, so the cello player is more of a luxury. We get to have him whenever we do big shows and stuff like that. We've got a cello player and a trumpet player that'll come in, whenever we've got big gigs. The main core of the group is I've got a guitar player. His name's Hunter Barron, who plays lead guitar. I've got a bass player whose name's Chandler Wilson. He plays bass, and Ashton Wilson and Joe Von Smith are my singers and my percussionist and my keyboardist. And then I have my drummer, Zach, and then Kevin Martinez plays sax and some other horns and does guitar. Now, I met them. Some of them I knew back in high school, honestly, which is the crazy thing. I was in jazz band with two of them, and then I found two on Craigslist, which is weird to say.
I was going to say that I could see like maybe buying a boat or a car, but finding players on Craigslist, that's a new one.
Well, and they've that's the thing, is there's a lot of people who post on Craigslist that are hey, I play this, or I want to be in a cover band or something, or I want to be whatever sort of group. There's not I haven't seen many incredible players off there, but I was just taking a chance. And the funny thing is, my first big touring gig I got was off of an ad on Craigslist. I just put up an ad. I was like, I'm a keyboardist looking to play for a group, and then this nationally touring country band was like, hey, come audition for us. Do you play the organ? And I didn't play the organ at first. I was like, I got an organ setting on my keyboard. And they were like, well, come try it out. And that's how I got my first big job. Now, I don't super recommend it. I don't really know how well it works, but, for me, I actually found some decent players off of it. And that's also how I found the cello player as well. He had just moved into Texas, and he hops on from gig to gig. And he just had an ad on there. He was looking for a group to do some occasional booking with, and he found us.
You put the band together. It's a great lineup. What was your, who did you listen to growing up? You said you were in jazz band in high school. What were your musical influences?
I mean, I listened to like the classical Coltrane and Dizzy Gillespie and a lot of those stuff. But I mean, we've got an oldie station down here. I just listened to a lot of oldies music. Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. A bunch of sort of old school Motown stuff is really what I mostly listen to. And even now, I mean, I still listen to some pop music, and I'll go through and I try to keep up to date on a lot of the pop music because that influences a lot of my writing. I listen to a lot of oldies and a lot of some new music. I just I generally enjoy most music. There's not much music I don't like. Whatever's playing, I'll listen to.
But your music in itself really doesn't fit in any of those kind of little pigeonholes. It's, I would describe it as trying to shove a square peg into a round hole with your music, because you have this spoken word. First of all, you've got this great, backbeat and wonderful rhythm section, and the vocalists that you have on there, all seem to be really stellar from the songs that I listen to, but then you interject, you kind of mix into the whole recipe, this spoken word, that some people would call hip hop or rap, but it seems to flow perfectly, and it's, to me, it sounds like you're creating music, and I've said this to a lot of my clients, don't think outside the box, get rid of the box. The box doesn't exist. Is that kind of how you approach your music?
Yeah, I mean, I just, I'll write basically from, experiences, and I just write what I feel, if I sit down at the piano and I feel a certain melody, and, I try to, I try not to do the normal, rhyming patterns all the time, but I just do what I feel, and sometimes you need more words than others to get, the story across, and, I just take whatever I've got and I run with it.
Where do your stories come from?
So I write, which is funny you ask that, is because, so I write everything off of real experiences. Everything is either a story of my life, or a story of, somebody around me, which is funny because Echoes, I didn't date or anything during, probably 80% of the whole writing of that album. And so what I would do is my friends would, tell me, because they, friends confide in you and talk to you, and I'd be like, hey, this is, they tell me about, their situation with females or girls, and I would take that and take those stories and write it into songs, which is part of Echoes. If you listen to Echoes, my friends will hear it and be like, oh my God, that's about me, and because I wasn't romantically involved with anybody, so I was like, pulling, passion and pulling, ideas from life experiences that, my friends and family have had, and, it came out really well.
So remind me not to ever share anything
be honest,
with you.
Now, to be fair, I do, like, if I'm going to write something about, like, a friend's story of mine, if they tell me about a terrible date they went on or something like that, I'll write it, and then I'll be like, hey, I wrote this about your situation. Do you mind if I post it? Or like, oh, dude, that is awesome. They always love it. But yeah, I don't just like, I'll let you know if I'm writing anything.
Well, being that I know Vinny as well as I do, I think we're pretty safe there unless there's something I don't know. We'll talk about that one later.
I'll never tell.
We're gonna listen to some of Jake Dexter's music here in a minute. We're gonna take a quick break. This is Bob Bender, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Hi, this is Vinny Rebus, the founder of Indie Connect. Our goal is to ensure that you have the knowledge, the tools, skills, resources, and connections that you need to develop a profitable and long-lasting career in music. One way we do this is through these Business Side of Music podcasts. I'd also like to invite you to check out Indie Connect magazine, our free multimedia online publication packed with practical interviews and advice from music industry experts. Go to www.indieconnectmag, that's www.indieconnectmag.com. Let us walk with you and guide you every step of your musical journey.
You're listening to the Business Side of Music.
Welcome back. This is Bob Bender with your co-host, co-producer, Vinny Rebus, Business Side of Music.
Howdy, y'all.
Vinny, always good to have you on board. So, Jake, you talk about Echoes. That was your follow-up album. You actually had a debut album that was what, Clockwork?
Yes.
And so
Yes, Clockwork was my debut.
So Clockwork came out, and I was listening to songs like Honestly and Mr. Postman, and we're going to play Mr. Postman here in a minute. You have different singers, different vocalists on looks like a lot of the different songs on
Yes.
each of the songs.
Yes.
How do you go about choosing those and picking those? Because I got to tell you, doesn't seem to be the normality of most bands.
Yeah.
To bring in a lot of outside singers.
Well, so when I worked on Clockwork, that was the pardon me, that was the very start of the project. I didn't have a band yet. Now, I mean, when I go into the studio and record, like for Clockwork and Echoes, on those I basically played all the instruments on all of them, so I composed it all myself. And so on those, it's like I've had people that I met over the years from touring, or I knew from previous groups where I had met just on the road, that I become good friends with. I try to keep my contacts. I'm a very outgoing person. If I meet an artist and they're great, or just in general, I just like to be personable. And a lot of those artists are just either friends or just people I met on the road. And I was like, hey, I've got this, this single I need, someone to record on. And I've heard them, all of them I've heard before. And, I have an idea of what I'm looking for, for Honestly, I really wanted a female's voice to really capture the story behind it. Mr. Postman, I wanted a male's voice. And I just contacted them and like, hey, you want to sing on this song? And, I'm blessed. They were all more than happy to, and they came out and did a great job. And I can sing. I'm just, I'm not a great singer. I know where my ups and my downs are, and I prefer to do spoken word because that way I can get my story across.
So let's talk a little bit about Mr. Postman. Tell us how that song came about.
So that song came about, it was actually about this girl I used to date, and she lived about 8 or 9 hours away from me. And it was great. We talked on the phone a lot, but she liked to do pen pal, and we liked to, send letters and packages back to each other. I was in College Station, and she was, 2 or 3 hours outside of Dallas. And, I was trying to draw inspiration. I had this idea, Mr. Postman. I had an idea like that in my head, just, about picking up the packages and everything. And I was thinking, well, if this went terribly wrong, or if for some reason I wasn't able to get a hold of her, or how could I make this into a song? And so I just took the situation and I just, maybe she left, or maybe she moved and I wasn't able to, get a hold of her. And I was like, I'm going to make that into a story, into a song, because there was a period of time where she had moved houses and she had just got a new number because she moved. And so there was like a month period where, we were out of communication, but we were still together. And so I was like, this is the perfect time for this. Now I knew she was, just getting readjusted, but that's where the inspiration came and ended up being a pretty cool song.
So you not only have the relationship with her that you based the song on, but you also had the United States Postal Service to thank for the inspiration.
Yeah, of course.
Let's listen to a little bit of Mr. Postman here.
Mr.
Mr. Postman, can't you see? I gotta get my baby home back to me. I'm alone tonight and the house is far too cold.
Now time and time again I walk the street with no one with me. I'm holding on inside, cause I know that something's missing in my mind. I can't keep straight, it feels like everything is slipping, yo. But if time was just a taste, then these words would leave me empty in my body and my soul. I feel you all around me, but this time I'm feeling cold, yo. And I can't get off the ground, and no, I can't hear the sound. Your voice out in the crowd, she had me holler and I'm running, but I know you hear me now, yeah, Mr.
Postman, can't you see? I gotta get my baby home back to me. I'm alone tonight and the house is far too cold. Yeah, so take this message and let her know that I'm sitting here waiting by the phone. I'ma wait for you, girl, until you come home.
Mr. Postman, you know, man, you had me up the coast, man. Looking for that girl was like an undercover flow van. Was that your whole plan? Is that your whole stand to have me sitting waiting for this girl just like my old man? You had me hoping and growing and showing and stowing. Every time I saw her, you know that she be going, baby. Yeah, little girl, yeah, you had me on your mind. But Mr. Postman, bring her back to me, yeah, just one more time, Mr.
Postman, can't you see? I gotta get my baby home back to me. I'm alone tonight and the house is far too cold. Take this message and let her know that I'm sitting here waiting by the phone. I'ma wait for you, girl, until you come home. Yeah. Mr. Postman, I'm sitting here waiting for you to bring me back my baby. Can you bring my baby? Can you bring her back home? Mr. Postman, can't you see? I gotta get my baby home back to me. I'm alone tonight and the house is far too cold. Yeah, so take this message and let her know that I'm sitting here waiting by the phone.
So we're listening to Mr. Postman, Jake Dexter, the Main Street Band performing. When you pick your songs, you know, we talked about this with another artist in another episode. The process, you know, it seems to be a little different with each artist. How does it flow for you? How do you, you know, when you're inspired and you write something like Mr. Postman, how do you find all those songs and then say, okay, this one's better than another one? And I mean, do you have like your favorites that you just absolutely love that grow on you immediately, or is it something you just have to kind of nurture?
Well, when I write sort of, pardon me, I write sort of sporadically, I guess you could say. Is I'll get an idea or a concept, and a lot of the times, like, I'll just sit down and I'll, you know, write it out, or I'll write the idea down, and then whenever I have time to write, I'll just write it out, and then I'll put music to it, and I'll actually record almost a full version of the entire song. And Vinny will be the first to tell you this. I mean, I'll write, you know, 1 or 2 singles a week or a couple a month, and, you know, I have a database of probably, you know, 100 songs, and maybe, you know, 75 of them aren't being used. They're just there that I went through and I picked out my favorites, and I'll send Vinny like 10 songs and be like, hey, which ones of these are bad? And, you know, he'll help me pick and choose, and I just sort of, you know, whichever ones I have the best feeling that, you know, really connect to me and that I think are going to connect to the listeners and they'll be able to understand, you know, what's going on. I take that and then, you know, I run with it. You know, I expand on the storyline and the composition, and that's just the way I work.
I noticed on the album Echoes, which is, I guess we would say is your sophomore project, you know, you have 14 tracks on that, which is a lot different from, you know, Clockwork, which was really more of a limited release when it comes to material. You know, you had 6 songs on that one. When we talk about the 2 albums, and I had the opportunity to listen to both of them, you know, as I was doing the research for the show, and you know, when I go through this process of, okay, we're going to interview someone and we're going to listen to the songs, you know, I try and find something that stands out that I really like. Now, herein lies the dilemma, because in some cases you'll listen to an album and you'll go, that song's okay, and you listen to the next one, you go, that song's all right. In your case, in your situation with both of your albums, it's like they're all good. They're just all, you just got to listen to them over and over again. So, you mentioned, before we came on the show that you've got another song out there right now that you did with Tim McDonald on vocals called "When I Have You," and that's not on either one of these projects, right?
No, it's not. It's a brand new summertime single I wrote.
Well, let's listen to a little bit of "When I Have You" with Jake Dexter and Tim McDonald on vocals.
When I'm with you, baby, nothing seems to matter. When I have you, baby, everything's just fine. When I have you, baby, nothing seems to matter. Nothing seems to matter. When I have you, I feel just fine. I feel just fine. I feel just fine.
Yeah, don't stop, baby, you were driving me crazy, got me swerving, thinking maybe I should just make you my lady for that long haul. With a ring and a phone call, you give it up, yeah, you can have it all. Pull up, come hop in the ride, we can jump in the back, we can go all night, we driving, jamming, singing through those songs we love, our very ride. I can't get enough of your love, ooh, you sexy thing. Never gonna give you up, my last, my everything. And just let that music play and run away with me. You're just the way you are, and let's leave.
When I'm with you, baby, nothing seems to matter. When I have you, baby, everything's just fine. When I have you, baby, nothing seems to matter. Nothing seems to matter. When I have you, I feel just fine.
Yeah, when you to the room, I got my eyes on sight. Locked up on your baby girl, yeah, she was looking out of mind. She is the top of the night, super classy, get it started. Got the whole room screaming, hell, we came to party. There's something about you, girl, I can't explain it. The way you move, it makes me crazy. I can't uphold myself, I gotta say it, baby, let me have you. Yeah,
Has Tim worked with you in the past?
Tim has not. Tim is I do producing work in my side. On the side, well, I'll take an artist and I'll consult over their writing, or I'll record them and compose their music for their album. And Tim is actually the lead singer of a band called the Whiskey Sour, which is now out of Colorado, and he's just a great singer. And we had talked about doing a song together for a while, and I had an idea and I sat down and showed it to him, and we just worked it out. And he was more than happy to sing on it, and he's got an incredible voice. He's a great singer, and they're a great group. And he just figured, it's perfect for the summertime. Put it on out.
How do you come across these guys? Someone like Tim McDonald, obviously not on Craigslist.
No. So they actually heard through the grapevine. I was producing another artist in Dallas. Named Alexa Garcia and Jen Whitlock, who are both female singers. They're both female pop singers, and I was working on their albums, and they heard the production and the writing and stuff, and especially Jen. And Jen, she's just a singer, and she needed help composing her album, and they heard it through her, and then they reached out to me and were like, "Hey, we've got a bunch of songs. Can you help us compose it full band?" And then it just went from there, and established that relationship, and it was a great time.
This is Bob Bender, and you're listening to this edition of the Business Side of Music.
You're listening to the Business Side of Music. Next up, the Indie Artist Spotlight, brought to you by Reverb Nation.
This is Donna Herrick from the band Herrick. And we're members of Reverb Nation. Hundreds of shows a year have created our unique sound that you can hear on the new album Cotton Fields. Go to Reverb Nation, listen and download now. This is Donna Herrick from the band Herrick, and we're members of Reverb Nation.
When I was a little bitty baby, my mama would rock me.
That's a lot of cotton.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Welcome back. This is Bob Bender with this edition of the business side of music, along with co-host, co-producer Vinny Rivas, and we've got Jake Dexter on the album. Hey, Vinny. So we talking a little bit about finding different singers. I noticed that on your Echoes album, you mentioned Alexa Garcia. She actually performed on one of your cuts off that album.
Yes, she is on Prisoner.
And so when you write a specific song, or you have a song in mind, because looking at your list of songs and the different vocalists that are on each song, do you write the song based around the vocalist you have in mind, or do you write the song and then bring the vocalist in?
No, I always write the song and compose it and the storyline and everything, and then I'll take a listen and be like, okay, who should I get on this? I always pick the singer afterwards. And I also always record the vocals with me singing on it with a bunch of autotune on it, and it sounds awful. And I use that to keep pace whenever I do it. And then it helps make an easier decision for me.
When you're in the studio, we talk about autotune these days. It to me is the bane of existence, along with compression. Do you try to keep things? And maybe the word analog is a little over too used, but do you like to keep things as natural as you can without a lot of embellishments?
I do, especially when it comes to singing. Now, when I sing, I'm not the greatest singer. I might be looking for that sort of electronic effect depending on the song. There's one or two songs I've got where it's really got a real electronic sound, and so I'll do it specifically for that. But as far as when it comes to having my singer sing on it, or having a feature, or when it's an actual single we're pushing, I really try to. I don't have anything against it. I just I like the real natural sound, and I might have them sing the same line 100 times. But we'll get it perfect, and then whenever it's perfect, it's well worth it.
But you try and keep it as organic as you can.
Yeah, that is just it's less work. the better it sounds, the less work it is trying to fix it.
Amen. Let's talk a little bit about another song that's on the project. There's a couple more songs that stick out, but this one, when we were going through the list of songs, Vinny and you and I were talking about which ones we wanted to showcase here on the podcast. Off the Echoes album was the song "In the Mix," and that song for some reason struck me more so than a lot of the other songs. Like I said, once again, you have 14 cuts on that album, and that one just really stuck out. Tell me a little bit about the song "In the Mix."
So "In the Mix," I actually wrote that back in College Station, probably about a year and a half before I released it. I was doing some listening to some funk music, some jazz music. I had taken off from work. I was off the road for about a week, and so I was just at my apartment playing video games and just relaxing. And I sat down and composed. I was like, I really want to write something that's really feel good, really funky, and so I sat down and listened to a bunch of different albums, a bunch of different records. I did some practicing on some jazz standards, and then I just sat down and I just recorded each instrument one by one. And I started with the drums, and I recorded live drums, just picked a funk beat, and then I layered the bass and the guitar and the keys and the rest of it on top of that. And then I really wanted to capture the way the sound was with the words. And so the words, they're all guided on, how you feel when you listen to the song. Let's get funky in the mix. You feel the bass booming, And if you listen to the lyrics on that, it's really all about the way you feel when you're listening to a song that you can just groove to. And so that was my intention, is to try and get it so when you listen to it, you just want to bop your head, you want to dance a little bit, and the lyrics are defining that in itself.
Let's take a listen here to In the Mix off the Echoes album with Jake Dexter and the Main Street Sound.
We about to break it down. Let's get funky with it, funky with it. Let's get funky in the mix. Let's get funky with it, funky with it. Funky in the mix. Let's get funky in the mix. You feel the bass booming, yeah, pumping in your mix. I'm Mr. Six, I got a bag of tricks, and I'm picking through your ears with these simple blues licks. And you can't stop your body right until these ways to fill your mind and fill your appetite. Body moving, you can't stop grooving. You feel it in your soul when your ears are booming, but booming. It's just a JD therapy. You got too much on your mind. Listen to me, I give you all you need. That room to breathe, a little soul loving with this track on repeat. Let's get funky with it, funky with it. Let's get funky in the mix. Let's get funky with it, funky with it. Funky in the mix. Let's get funky with it, funky with it. Let's get funky in the mix. Let's get funky with it, funky with it. Funky in the mix. Let's get funky in the mix. You feel the bass booming, yeah, pumping in your mix. You're Mr. Six, I got a bag of tricks, and I'm picking through your ears with the simple blues licks. And you can't stop your body right and do these ways to fill your mind and fill your appetite. Body moving, you can't stop grooving. You feel it in your soul when your ears are booming, but booming. It's just the JD therapy. You got too much on your mind. Listen to me, I give you all you need. That room to breathe, a little soul loving with this track on repeat. Let's get funky with it, funky with it. Let's get funky in the mix. Let's get funky with it, funky with it. Funky in the mix. Let's get funky with it, funky with it. Let's get funky in the mix. Let's get funky with it, funky with it.
This is Bob Bender, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to the business side of music.
On the show today, we've got Jake Dexter out of Dallas, Texas. You spent some time in Austin, correct?
Yes. I lived in Austin for about 2 years.
So the Texas music scene, for those that live outside of that world, I guess, the Texas music scene is completely different from the rest of the country. I know from, especially from a country music standpoint, it's a little more red dirt, a little more Americana. Do you find with your style of music that it's a lot different flavor there in Texas than it is anywhere else in the country?
Yeah, it's definitely out of the box. And it's funny you mentioned, the Texas country scene is, the Texas country scene is a lot different than the Nashville country scene, and and the Texas music scene in general is just a little more, like you said, Americana, a little more folk, a little more, red dirt, and we are definitely stand out, way different than those, but it's actually been really great. We'll perform at some events where they're used to that kind of music, and we'll perform and people will be like, what is this? But they'll like it, and it seems like, in other parts of the country, we've had the same effect, is people don't really know what they're seeing, but they seem to enjoy it. They come up and talk to us, and, we'll sign autographs and talk to people for, an hour or two after every show. And just because I think people aren't really sure what to call the music, but they seem to like it and they seem to dance to it. And so as long as they're having a good time, we're doing our job.
Hey, and you know what? And that's a nice problem to have too. Keep your keep your music base, keep your fans on their toes. So on this episode, we've had Jake Dexter. We've talked a little bit about his two projects. We've talked about his upcoming single that's coming out, When I Have You, and one other song that seemed to stand out that we were talking about as we were getting into this is the song Mr. Heartbreaker. And I kind of want to finish off the episode with this song. once again, this is one of these tunes that just stands out there and makes a statement. Tell us about this song.
So, Mr. Heartbreaker, when you think of somebody, breaking your heart, you most of the time think of, women, maybe she broke your heart or she found somebody else. And that was one thing that I really wanted to write about is it's about a guy who can't commit to a girl because he knows he's going to break her heart. He's in the situation where she would like to be with him, but he's just not at a point in time in his life where he can be with her. And so he basically lets her know, hey, I'm sort of bad news. I can't, I can't date. I can't do this. And they call me Mr. Heartbreaker. And so that's where the song inspired from. And we actually have a music video on Facebook and on YouTube that you can go and watch you can see the full enactment of the story behind it. But yeah, that is Mr. Heartbreaker.
Let's listen to Jake Dexter and Mr. Heartbreaker.
They call me Mr. Heartbreaker, heartbreaker, yeah. I shoot you down. I'm Mr. Heartbreaker, heartbreaker, yeah.
She came in here with that grin, just a bona fide sin. She doesn't know what she's in for. I spin your head back around and again. You're right back to the door. She looking so fine, I wanna make that lady mine. Turn that world upside down that she knows. But it's impossible and not probable and not even astronomical. I guess I'll leave her alone.
They call me Mr. Heartbreaker, heartbreaker, yeah. I shoot you down. I'm Mr. Heartbreaker, heartbreaker, yeah.
Mr. Heartbreaker, not Mr. Hearttaker. Every time you think you're timid and you make a mistake, it's impossible you see, impossible you dream. Commitment on my rent and it breaks my reality. Well, it's not like I can't get to know ya, and you just gotta understand. People I take over the game, a bigger mistake, a bigger the break. So run as fast as you can.
They call me Mr. Heartbreaker, heartbreaker, yeah. I shoot you down. Mr. Heartbreaker, 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 heartbreaker,
So listening to your music, and once again, I said this earlier, it's just this deep pool of musical talent you have there between your players that are in the band, the Main Street Sound, and yourself. Where do you see you guys going? I mean, are you doing a lot of touring these days?
Yeah, I mean we're playing. We've got a lot of shows coming up, but I'm hoping with the new single and the new product and the band that we've got going, we've got some great momentum happening, and hopefully by this time next year we'll be on the road full time. Hopefully all over the U.S. is the goal.
So, Jake, how do they go about finding you? You have a website?
Yeah, we've got a website at jakedexter.com. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anything and everything at Jake Dexter Music. And on Spotify, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and iTunes, just search Jake Dexter and you'll find us.
And that's definitely something we always want people to do is, let's support our artists here. Let's support the musicians. Listen to their music. Definitely, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, wherever their music is, listen to it. And I got to tell you, I've never steered you guys wrong. I won't, listening now, this is definitely something you got to listen to is Jake Dexter. So, Jake, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate having you.
Well, thank you for having me. It was nice talking to you, Bob. Nice talking to you, Vinny.
Same here. Hey, Vinny,
Same here.
Thanks for being a part of this episode. Always good to have you on board.
I wouldn't miss it. I love it.
Yeah, same here. All right. On behalf of Vinny Rebus, this is Bob Bender, and you're listening to The Business Side of Music.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender for Bob Bender Productions. Co-producer for the show is Vinny Rebus. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Los Angeles, California and Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound designed by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Fuson.